Some MAGA Fox News hosts are joining the increasing chorus of conservatives who are panicking and sounding the alarm about the 2026 midterms in the aftermath of the crushing blue wave elections this past Tuesday. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I'm really enjoying the ongoing Schadenfreude tour of MAGA Fox News hosts and MAGA Republicans and principled conservatives and Donald Trump himself all struggling to wrestle with what happened this past Tuesday in the blue wave elections. And what's interesting in the clip I'm about to show you is to see not just two Fox News hosts, but MAGA Fox News hosts, including Tomi Lahren, sounding the alarm and warning Republicans to get their shit together. Take a look.
So, Joey, he makes a good point there, but I will say this. I think that it's always a bad idea when Republicans get too cocky. I think we've done this before. We've seen this movie before. The red waves that were always supposed to crash that never happened. So, whereas I do agree that these elections aren't necessarily a bellwether. We talked about it last weekend. New Jersey, we wanted to win. We made some gains, didn't win it. Virginia, yeah, we maybe didn't have the best candidate. We lost it. New York City, they elected a socialist. You played yourself. But I do think Republicans would be wise to maybe have a wake-up call here and realize that we can't take anything for granted.
So we're going to here in just a second, we're going to take a look at what her co-host says, because he also is sounding the alarm here. I appreciate Tomi Lahren being a bit honest here. Now, she's not trying to send Republicans into a full-blown panic, but she is trying to sound the alarm. And she points out 2022 is a great example. We were supposed to get a red wave. That's what everybody predicted. That's what I expected to be the case, not just because the history shows that the incumbent president tends to lose, and sometimes fairly big, in the next midterm, but because the polling indicated, or at least the polling analysis indicated at the time, that there would be a red wave, and there wasn't. There was more of a pinkish trickle. Yes, the House flipped, but barely. And Democrats were able to actually expand their Senate majority at the time, so it was at best a mixed bag, but no red wave emerged. So Tomi Lahren isn't just appealing to, diligence or vigilance or even prudence. She's actually pointing to recent specific historic examples of where Republicans thought they would just coast into some sort of supermajority, and it never happened. So let's continue.
What's your sense?
No, you're absolutely right. Listen, socialism isn't on the rise, but moderates won, at least in the voters' eyes, moderates won in Virginia and New Jersey. That's the real scare. That's really what should bother them. If you take a history lesson, you go back, one thing the Tea Party did is they came in and they beat all the blue dog Democrats. And then when those Tea Party people got beat by Democrats, it was by more liberal Democrats. So what you lost in that were the moderates and Democrat Party. And, it's great to take a seat, but if you can't hold it, and what replaces that moderate liberal becomes this progressive radical liberal. And well, here we are 10, 12 years later in a worse position. Right. And so what you're seeing now is a swing back towards some moderates are coming in and they're taking opportunities where Republicans that came in and surprised and held a seat or had a surge in places like New Jersey couldn't quite hang on to it. No, it's not a surprise that a blue state votes blue, but it is important who they vote for. I think what happened here in New York City is completely different. What happened in Virginia, New Jersey, those are the fights in other places, congressional districts in Texas, in the Midwest, that it will be if the Democrats put up good moderate candidates, and I say good meaning polling well, against Republicans, they better work really hard.
So that Fox panel is freaking out, and those are MAGA Fox News hosts on that panel. They are concerned. And listen, I think take nothing for granted. I think that's a great expression to have. I don't think Democrats should take anything for granted either. We should be hyped and emboldened and more confident and delighted. We should enjoy the dopamine rush after what happened on Tuesday, but we can't just therefore assume that it will happen. It's like a fait accompli, that it's just set in stone that November 4th, 2026 will go the way that November 4th, 2025 did. There's no reason to believe that. There's no reason that it will necessarily happen. But now it's more likely. It's more likely, it seems. There's greater hope for that. But it's not just MAGA Fox News hosts. I want to read you some excerpts from the conservative Wall Street Journal, sister publication of Fox News, and the even more right-wing National Review, because they are also panicking as well. So this is from the editorial board. Democrats start their comeback. Donald Trump rolled the victory in 2024, promising to reduce inflation and make middle-class life more affordable. The warning to Republicans in Tuesday's election results is that Democrats are turning the tables on affordability, especially when they steer clear of leftist cultural snares. Democrats had a good night Tuesday, winning governorships in Virginia and New Jersey, which they hope foreshadows the 2026 midterms. But notice the party's choice of nominees. Each was a cagey candidate with a centrist affect, whatever their records. Will Democratic primary voters next year elevate similar figures, or will they go to Zoran Mamdani? Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger won her race in Virginia in a rout over Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears. The Democratic sweep was so large that the party gained 13 seats in the House of Delegates in an unofficial results and will have unified political control in Richmond. And by the way, they should gerrymander the hell out of Virginia with that unified control. Will Spanberger now forsake her pledges of moderation? Since voters have broadly approved of the job that Republican Glenn Youngkin has done, it will be hard to watch his conservative policies get rolled back. They're hoping, again, that she decides to, carry much of Youngkin's policies through, which is absurd. But let's continue. The Democratic wave even helped challenger Jay Jones defeat incumbent Republican Attorney General Jason Myers. The Jones victory shows how little scandals matter in our partisan era. New Jersey, some polls predicted a close contest, but Democratic Governor-elect Mikey Sherrill won with ease. Alas, that means no real relief for the state's aching wallets. Again, it's a conservative publication, so they're upset about this. The GOP's candidate wanted to cut New Jersey's high taxes on residents and companies, and he argued that citizens see the high cost of the Democratic green agenda whenever they pay their exorbitant energy bills. Give him credit for a spirited campaign. But again, it was unable to succeed. If Democrats can convince voters they're the better bet for getting ahead economically, the GOP is in trouble for 2026. Trump's tariffs aren't helping. Neither is the 3% inflation still eating away at the earnings and raises of American workers. Virginia and New Jersey were always going to be uphill races for Republicans since these odd-year gubernatorial elections sometimes go against the party in the White House. The GOP won both states in 2009 and Virginia in 2021 under Presidents Obama and Biden. This time, Democrats had the advantage of rallying voters upset at Trump. Exit polls show that Trump's approval rating at 44% in New Jersey and 42% in Virginia. The era of MAGA triumphalism should be over. So, that's what the Wall Street Journal editorial board had to say. This is what the editorial board at the National Review had to say. It was hard to find any bright spot for Republicans in a near comprehensive wipeout on Tuesday. This shouldn't be overinterpreted, since the normal course of things, Republicans are hard-pressed to win statewide in Virginia and New Jersey, and they have no chance in New York City. But the margins in Virginia and New Jersey were stunning. Abigail Spanberger's crushing double-digit win was enough to get Attorney General candidate Jay Jones over the top, despite his loathsome texts. We trust we haven't heard the last from defeated Republican incumbent Attorney General, an exemplary office holder who couldn't overcome a Democratic tide. In Virginia, the top of the ticket was underfunded and underwhelming, but in New Jersey, the Republican gubernatorial candidate ran a spirited campaign close in the polls, and it didn't matter. He got shellacked too. Trump attributed the tough night in part to him not being on the ballot. That's clearly an element of the problem. Other Republicans can't turn out his voters the way he can. But Trump left out the other part of the equation, which is that the unrelenting Democratic message linking every Republican on the ballot to him clearly worked, and the vote share of Earl-Sears and the Satrielli, about match Trump's low 40s approval rating in their states. All things being equal, these are bad signs for next year's congressional midterms. With California handily passing Gavin Newsom's redistricting referendum, the parties will continue their fight to squeeze more House seats out of the states they control. Republicans may net more seats from this competition, but no amount of gerrymandering will be able to withstand this kind of Democratic surge if it materializes again in a year's time. So they're freaking out. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board also posted this. Trump really was on the ballot because, again, touching on what we just heard, Trump said, well, I'm not on the ballot. We got our asses kicked, but it was because I wasn't on the ballot. Except you kind of were. Okay? The magnitude of the GOP rout is a bad side for holding Congress in the midterms. Trump on Wednesday blamed Tuesday's Republican election defeats on the government shutdown and the fact that he wasn't on the ballot. If he really believes this, the GOP is heading for even bigger problems in 2026. Trump was on the ballot, not literally, but nonetheless, he as the main motivating force behind a dominating Democratic turnout. Winning Democratic candidates for governor in New Jersey and Virginia linked their opponents to Trump, driving Democratic voters to the polls and erasing the GOP's gains in 2024 among Hispanics, black men, and independents. The result was a much bigger Democratic triumph than polls predicted. In Virginia, the Democrat won by nearly 15 points, the biggest rout in years. The GOP nominee wasn't a disciplined campaigner, but anyone would have drowned in Tuesday's wave. They're even calling it a tsunami. The tsunami was big enough. The Democrats were able to pick up 13 seats in the state House of Delegates. They'll have 64 seats out of 100, which could give Democrats the chance to redistrict next year to gain congressional seats. And again, they should. Republicans can't blame the incumbent GOP Glenn Youngkin, whose approval rating in exit polls is 53%. A 58% majority say the state's economy is excellent or good, which it is. But voters give Trump a dismal rating with 39% approval. Nearly two-thirds don't like the way the country's going, with 36% saying they're angry and 28% saying they're satisfied. Only 12% say their families are getting ahead financially. This is a huge undertow for the GOP. The results in New York and New Jersey were similar. Mikey Sherrill looks like she'll win by 13 points. Phil Murphy only won by 3 in 2021. The GOP's candidate ran a solid campaign against the state's high taxes and punishing energy prices. But 65% of voters are unhappy about America's direction, according to exit polls. 65%. And 41% are casting their ballots, at least in part, to oppose Trump. Outcomes elsewhere also suggest a rising backlash against Trump. Democrats haven't won an election for years in Georgia's statewide utility commission, but they won 2 on Tuesday. In Mississippi, Democrats picked up a couple of state Senate seats, breaking a GOP supermajority. Newsom's referendum on gerrymandering the state's House map, which could net Democrats 5 seats next year, is ahead by 2-1. Again, it won. Trump has a point that the government shutdown may have hurt the GOP as the party in power, especially in Virginia. Democrats won because they focused on the cost of living, and most races avoided the cultural cul-de-sacs of the Biden years. The polls show the economy is by far the biggest issue, and Trump's approval rating on inflation and the economy is underwater. ICE raids on Home Depot parking lots and running against transgender extremists won't work if Democrats don't play into GOP hands. The electorate gave Trump another term because he pledged to lower prices and raise real incomes, but his economic record is mixed at best, and remember, this is from the conservative Wall Street Journal. Inflation is stuck at 3%, yet Trump causes damage with his mercurial tariffs, and then he demands the Federal Reserve slash interest rates to compensate for it. Meantime, he pursues polarizing distractions from his mandate, such as ordering the National Guard into cities that don't want it and lobbying for indictments of his political opponents. The 2025 election was a warning from the voters. If Republicans don't adapt, the GOP is sure to lose its House majority, and the Senate could be in play in too. The Senate is still a bit of a long shot, but Democrats are taking it much more seriously. The National Review, again, they posted, folks, they're in a full-blown freakout. Another, Karl Rove jumps in on this as well. The meaning of the Democrats' victory. Voters are frustrated with Trump, but they're not about to embrace Mamdani. They are obsessed with Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani, right? Even though he was one of 3, marquee victors, along with Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, right? And so Karl Rove wants to make this about Mamdani because he thinks that Mamdani is going to be an anchor around the Democrats' ankles in the 2026 midterms. Maybe, but there's no reason for that to necessarily be the case. And so Karl Rove, this legendary Republican strategist and Fox News contributor, also is writing about this, how this is terrible for Trump. Democrats even won in states that Trump carried last year, talking about, again, in Georgia as well as Mississippi. And it's just, the point is, because I'd love to read all this to you guys, it's just so fun. They're panicking. Karl Rove is panicking. Tomi Lahren is panicking. Even an increasing number of MAGA Fox News hosts are panicking about this because they recognize that if Trump isn't able to get his shit together, all else being equal, the Republicans are likely to lose the midterms. But we don't know how serious the Republican Party as a whole are taking this. Trump is sounding the alarm. But other Republicans like Mike Johnson, for example, are, no big deal. It's kind of business as usual. We expected this. So it's entirely possible that their overconfidence will make this even worse. But in the meantime, we can continue to bask in their misery as more and more MAGA Fox News hosts and others are recognizing they got their asses kicked on Tuesday, and Republicans writ large should be terrified about the 2026 midterms. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.